It can be a strange world out there. And every delicious mystery might just have a nugget of truth. This is Cryptid Nuggets.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cryptid Nuggets, a Beastie Boys Paranormal Adventures podcast. I am John Stenning, and as always, I am joined by Mitch DeAngelis. Hello, Mitch. How are you?
Hello, that's me.
That's him. He's here. He's giving a thumbs up to the camera, and that means that we're ready to go. Mitch, a couple of things before we get into our topic today. I've got a couple of things written down. First of all, I'd like to follow up on the cassava chips. I did put them in my burrito bowls, and it wasn't that much of a plus-up, to be perfectly honest. I know you and I talked about it.
Yeah, that's a shame.
But, yeah, it just was. It was a crunch factor, but it was crunch just for crunch's sake only. And, you got to have a little bit. Give me a little bit of salt or something. Yeah, so let's just say I probably haven't really thought about cassava chips much since the last time I ate them for the show. Yourself?
Yeah. No, I don't think they're anywhere on my go-to list of need to consume anytime soon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm really hoping that today's snack is something that I'm going to want to eat all the time. I feel like it's going to be great for me, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. I rode my bike by the haunted tree in Smithfield yesterday. Are you familiar with the haunted tree? You must be. What?
The haunted tree in Smithfield?
There's a haunted tree in Smithfield.
This is not Witch's Road, right? That's a different tree. Are we thinking of the same tree?
Is it the tree in the middle of the road?
Yeah, it's in the middle of the road, right?
Yeah, it's in
and there's
Smithfield.
there's a bunch of signs there because people have crashed into it and passed away, unfortunately. Is that the tree that you live by? Is that in Smithfield? I don't remember where it is.
Yeah. It's in Smithfield. I know it. I've known it as like the Devil Tree. It's off of Route 44 in Smithfield, the intersection of West Greenville Road and Austin Avenue.
Yeah.
There was an old gnarled tree there, and yes, people have hit it and gotten into accidents. They cut that tree down. A new tree grew in its place.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is so. Then yes, I'm very familiar. In fact, when we did the show with the four of us. I forgot.
I've sworn we talked about this before,
I forgot what episode number it is, but there's one where we talk about urban legends. And that's the urban legend that I chose to talk about because that was like the urban legend that I remember growing up with around here was Witch's Road and the tree in the middle of the road where if you drive around it, a mysterious black car comes and chases you. And did that happen to you when you rode your bike around?
Yeah, I actually do ride my bike around roundabouts every single chance that I get. If I come to a roundabout or a rotary, I go around it. Yesterday, I did not go around the tree more than once. I was too scared to be followed back to the coffee shop by a devil. But yeah, there's a tale that suggests that there were executions at this tree, right? Like it was used as gallows, and it's just absolutely wild. And riding by it on a bicycle is just you're like, what the fuck is even it's such a Rhode Island thing for this tree to be in the middle of the road, you know?
For sure.
Yeah. So what do you got for me today? This is the show where you sort of pitch me some what I like to call ludicrous tale.
So
and I guess I sort of oh wow.
Yeah.
Seems like a big I wasn't even
sorry. No, please continue.
Tidbit?
Well, I don't know if you might find this tale ludicrous, but I find it rather compelling, personally.
Okay.
But we'll, finish your thought first. I want to hear what else you were going to say.
No, I'm not going to finish my thought. I guess I'll be a good host of the podcast. So if this is your first time listening to the show, Mitch comes to me with this, sort of supernatural, cryptozoological, paranormal involved tale. And today, all I really know is that there's some sort of military involvement, especially based on the snack that I'm sure. Calling it a snack is funny. You see it in the title of the episode, I'm sure. But yeah, we're sort of having a military-based episode today, and Mitch is going to tell me a compelling story, and I guess I'm going to either roll my eyes at it constantly, or maybe I will think it's compelling. But I will tell you, I'm very motivated motivated is a great word, to eat what we're going to eat later. So, all right, let's get to this compelling story. Sorry to hold you up.
All right, well, like always, I like to give a little bit of background information, because I think it's important for context. So, I think almost everyone knows someone that was involved with the military in some capacity, right? Like maybe
are you gonna explain the military to us?
No. But
well, there's these militias, and actually, when the Constitution,
you see the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, right. And
but no,
back even to feudal militaries.
Yeah. Well, believe me, I know a lot about military history.
I know. I was just gonna say. You definitely are someone that could just talk about feudal militaries for an hour.
More than that,
and
probably.
I think we should talk about Shogun, but not on the podcast because no one wants to hear what I have to say about the show Shogun.
Yeah, I'm curious.
But yeah, please
curious
continue.
About that. We'll have a conversation on the side at some point.
Okay.
But you might have family members who are members of the military. Might be a friend.
Yes, my dad was in the Marines.
Yeah.
My grandpa was in the Army. My great-grandpa was in the Army.
Exactly.
Me? No. I make podcasts.
Yeah. Well, on a similar note, right, I have an uncle who was a Marine in the 1980s. I got a great uncle that was, he was in the Korean War, and he was that guy who would be on the radio that would call in the airstrikes until the armistice happened. And then he became a chef in the military.
Wow.
And he wound up being the guy who would cook for the generals because his food was so good.
Oh, wow. And where was he from?
He's right from Rhode Island. He's right from North Province.
That's great. Just like a chef in the military from North Providence cooking up for the generals. Fucking spaghetti and meatball gabagool.
No, you jest, but one of the things he used to do. I bet it was
great.
He used to make a sauce.
I do jest, but
and he used to have his mother back in the States ship him pepperoni from the local markets to put in the sauce.
Some really specific Italian market on a corner somewhere near Mineral Spring Ave. Because remember, the best pepperoni.
Yeah. This was back in the day too. It wasn't that Pepperidge Farms, shipped. I'm not dissing Pepperidge Farms at all, but it was a little more authentic, probably.
Wait, why did you say Pepperidge Farm? Because of bread?
I thought Pepperidge. Oh no, I'm thinking of Oscar Mayer.
Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about? Fucking pepperoni and Pepperidge Farm? That's different.
That's funny. I was thinking of Oscar Mayer. But
all right, so the military.
Yeah, so the military.
You're not going to explain the military, but you're going to say we all know people.
We all know people, right?
Is that?
And they all have stories, right, about their time in the military. Sometimes.
Well, yeah, it's a different. Yeah. It's an interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I think it's very valiant. Say what you will about war.
Yeah.
But I think it's very valiant to sign up for the military and be hey, I'm gonna serve my time to help the country,
Oh, for sure.
It is a unique experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. There are a lot of tales, right?
Yeah.
Because it can be pretty I don't know, it can be pretty hairy, it can be pretty epic, it can be, I think it can be very eventful, right?
Oh,
I'm sure if you're, there's different scales depending on your involvement, but yeah, of course, a lot of tales coming from I love this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
what kind of tales are we talking?
Yeah. So, sometimes they're very positive tales, right? Fun stuff that they did at boot camp or things they remember when they were on shore leave, if they were in the Navy or something, right? But, people in the military also can experience a lot of trauma, and where more in tune to that today, I think, than we've ever been in the past, right? And you know, veterans have much more services for that kind of stuff now, and you know, the threats of
it's still not good.
Oh, it's still not good, but it's way better than it ever used to be.
Sure.
Right? And
sure. I mean, there was a time where PTSD wasn't even a phrase, right?
Yes.
They called it shell shock. And like, you know, it was,
Exactly, right? So, I want to preface this by saying, to some people, it might maybe sound a little trivial and possibly insulting to suggest that, you know, some experiences in the military might be paranormal or supernatural in nature, because, you know, these guys are also dealing with like very real threats of enemy forces shooting at them, especially during wartime and stuff like that. But you know, paranormal encounters and experiences by servicemen and women is not as rare as you would expect. You know, war in the paranormal.
No, I wouldn't even. I wouldn't expect it to be rare. I would actually expect it to be like common.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. You know what I mean? Just because like they're in desolate places. I feel like there's sort of a government involvement to paranormal activity in some way. I don't know. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
I hear you.
Just, like,
I don't think that's far fetched at all. I don't think that's a far fetched idea of thinking, right? And
I mean, if you get your hands into everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're gonna get involved in stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, war and the paranormal, they kind of have like a close relationship, and they've had that since like ancient times. So, like, you know, you got tales of haunted battlefields and vengeful ghosts of like enemy soldiers, and you know, these things can be found in, you know, not only stories but sometimes even like historical documents from like ancient Rome and China and medieval Europe. And today, you know, you have stories of haunted military installations and naval ships. You know, there's encounters with otherworldly beings, extraterrestrials, or UAPs by military personnel. You know, even sightings of cryptids and unknown creatures that you can find on the internet and stuff like that. So, in many ways, it's kind of like an iceberg. You know, at the very top is like, oh, you know, some maybe mainstream paranormal thoughts about like the military, you know, like the UAP disclosure, you know, UFO disclosure would be at the top, right? And then, you know, as you go deeper and deeper below the water, you know, you start running into a breadth of all sorts of crazy things that have been documented and reported by people who collect this sort of information in books, in news articles, in magazines, and all sorts of stuff. So, the story I'm going to tell you today is what I would call the kind that's sort of at the tip of the iceberg, maybe just below the surface level, when it comes to military paranormal encounters. And it's a story that was told by verified faces and names who gave their testimony about a truly strange and frightening 60-day stint at an observation post in Afghanistan in 2009. So, let's talk about Afghanistan just a little bit. So, it's in the Middle East. A lot of people, when you think of Afghanistan, they're probably just going to think like endless desert. But Afghanistan actually has kind of varied terrain. There's mountain ranges, there's fields, patches of forest, rivers, all that sort of stuff. The region has earned the nickname the Graveyard of Empires. And that's because from the ancient...
What, just like the country of Afghanistan?
Yeah, Afghanistan has the nickname the Graveyard of Empires. And the reason for that is because from the ancient Greeks and Romans to the British Empire to the Soviet Union, you know, these big giant empires have always tried to conquer and hold Afghanistan, and they always fail. And Afghanistan is a region of the world that has seen a lot of bloodshed throughout its history. So as a lot of people probably know, probably most people listening to this would have been alive at the time, I would imagine. After the September 11th, 2001 attack on the World Trade Center by Al-Qaeda, the U.S. to get...
Mitch has given us a September 11th lesson.
Yeah,
right
well,
now.
it's important context. It's important context, right? Because maybe you're not plugged in. Who knows, right? Maybe you're 6 years old and you stumbled onto this show. You shouldn't be listening to this, but...
You shouldn't be listening to this. You should learn about what 9/11 is first.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mitch. So 9/11 happened.
So 9/11 happened. We go into, we invade Afghanistan and a bunch of other Middle Eastern countries too, right? And we get into this 20-year war where we're going to war against Al-Qaeda, against the Taliban, against all these terror groups. And then in 2009... the United States deploys an additional 30,000 troops to Afghanistan from all their branches, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. And then they're working together with British troops that are in the area. And this is where our story takes place. In 2009, all these new troops get sent to Afghanistan. And I guess the main character of our story is Corporal Jacob Lena. And he's second in command of this band of Marines in 2009. And they have their orders, which are to go man an observation post in Helmand Province in Afghanistan. And, it probably doesn't seem like anything too out of the ordinary. So the leader of this Marine squad his name is Sergeant Green. And the squad also included Lance Corporals Zolik, Smith, Wilson, Diggs, Parker, and Hoyt. So there's 8 Marines total.
Okay.
All right.
This is at one specific base. My dad was a Lance Corporal, I believe.
Yes.
My dad, Lance Corporal sounds familiar. Okay, so this is all at some specific base in Helmand Province.
In Helmand Province in Afghanistan.
I hate to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Do you know how big Afghanistan is compared to, let's use my skewed viewpoint of the world, compared to the United States?
So,
do you know how big Afghanistan is compared?
Not off the top of my head, but just, going by looking at different maps and also being a person who plays a lot of computer strategy games, so I tend to look at the world a lot. I'd say that Afghanistan is probably... It's pretty large. It's a pretty large country.
I think it's about the size of the American South. Would you say that?
I would think so. I would say definitely. I would say...
South of the Mason-Dixon line, but east of Texas.
Yes, I would say at least that large, for sure.
Include Florida if you want. Who really cares?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So...
All right, cool. That's what I would say, too. All right, so they're in Helmand Province.
They're in Helmand Province in Afghanistan, and their job is to go to this observation post, which is usually abbreviated as OP. So anytime I say OP, I'm referring to observation post. And the OP's name is Rock. That's like the code name for the OP. And now, typically, an observation post is in a strategically important place that's like high above the terrain. It's like a watchtower, basically. So you have a clear tactical advantage. You can see everything coming, right? But OP Rock was a little different. So it's built onto this hill that's surrounded by poppy fields. Poppy is, a plant.
It's a flower.
It's a flower that you can be turned into some different types of chemicals that.
Opium.
Yes, exactly. Right. That we'll get to that towards the end of how that might have played a role in things, but I just wanted to point that out now. So. The thing about OP
beautiful
Rock,
flowers, beautiful.
Oh yeah, they are quite stunning looking, and they're also one of the chief exports of Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
So this OP was surrounded by these large plateaus that negated basically any of the normal tactical advantages of being up so high. You know what I mean? There could just be a sniper on one of those hills that could just, if you popped your head out for too long, you're at risk of, being shot. So. And it overlooks this big giant poppy field. Now, the 8-man squad's orders are pretty simple. They're going to arrive at OP Rock to relieve the British soldiers that had been manning that post for 60 days. So the British were there for 60 days. They show up. They stay for 60 days. Then someone else will show up and relieve them, right? So they get to this place, and the first thing they notice is that the British soldiers that were staying there looked especially beaten down and weathered. Almost as if they had been, like, stationed there for years rather than 60 days. Like, you know, that short amount of time they spent there really took their toll on them.
Is there same amount of British guys, like 8
Yes.
of them too?
Yeah. Right, and it's like British.
Yeah,
it's
okay.
basically the British equivalent of Marines. They were like British Royal Marines,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, right. Yeah.
now it would have been common protocol to do like a turnover when the new group arrives, which is the old group takes them around, shows them everything, gives them a tour of like, hey, look out for this area. There might be IEDs over here, or you're exposed in this area. Be careful, or we think the enemy might be moving here,
Yeah,
or
give them the lay of the land.
exactly,
stuff,
right? So the British soldiers were so anxious to get the hell out of there that they didn't even do that. They left them with 2 things. The first was they left a well-trained sentry dog with them, whose name is Ugly Betty. And Ugly Betty comes with the post.
Is this like a German Shepherd? What's a sentry dog?
So a sentry dog that's just like the job description. I couldn't find out what the actual breed of the dog was. But I did watch
just like some
an
badass
episode.
dog.
I did watch an episode of a TV show that told this as part of my research, right? And in the dramatizations, they used like a beagle. So I picture it as a beagle in my head, but I don't know what
the German Shepherd canceled.
Yeah. So, but the second thing they told him, this is the most interesting thing, was so there's this trench that's around the OP, right? And the subject of the trench comes up, and a British soldier tells the Marines, if you dig up anything, put it back. And, you know, they...
Sounds like
that's
cemetery.
It. That's all they told him. If you dig up anything, put it back. And then with that, the British troops left, and these Marines took control of OP Rock for the next 60 days, where they're going to be on lookout for the Taliban, because they're watching for Taliban movements through the area. So, the very first night at their stay there, Corporal Lena, who's the second in command, on watch duty. He's on watch duty, he's manning a guard post, there's like a guard tower that sticks up, and there was no bunks or anything, or beds, so like outside of the guard tower, there was sort of like a protected area with like sandbags and like walls that, you know, like those temporary walls that you can erect, where everybody else is just sleeping in sleeping bags. There were no amenities whatsoever. It was a real rough place to be. So it's a quiet night. He's looking over the surrounding fields while, you know, these 7 other guys are bunkering down for the night. And Sergeant Green comes in to check on him, and this detail is going to be important later. But Sergeant Green has this very distinct way of alerting a squad member when he's behind them. He would tap them twice in succession on the left shoulder. And he would do this so, you know, he wouldn't spook somebody that was under his command so that they would know it's him behind him. And he would do it every time. So everybody turned in for bed. Lena's practically alone. He's, you know, it's kind of eerie out there. He's watching over the fields. And then his encrypted radio started getting strange interference. And it sounded like someone was trying to reach him. So at first he's like, oh, it's maybe malfunctioning. So he swaps the battery. And then it happens a second time. And then he radios HQ, who is the only place that would have the crypto for his encrypted secure transmission, to see if they reached him. And it was a negative. They weren't trying to reach anybody. They weren't transmitting or receiving any traffic. So he thought that was kind of odd. He kind of thought, you know, that's weird. Something weird's going on with the radio. I'll have communications look at it tomorrow. And then it happened again, a third time. And then he knew that it wasn't anyone else on the squad messing with him, because he could physically see all 7 of them asleep. So that's when he started to actually listen to what it is, and he was able to make out a voice beneath the static. And it definitely wasn't English, whatever it was speaking. To him, it sounded like Russian. So the following morning, he decides, hey, I'm going to tell the squad something weird was happening with the radio. We might want to get that worked out. You know, I think it might be malfunctioning or anything. So they spend the next day kind of surveying the OP and doing what the British were supposed to do them the day before, right? And that's when they notice that the trench that's dug around the OP is not very deep. So it was so shallow that if you stood at full height, your whole upper body was basically exposed.
Still be seen.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And they were wondering why the British troops who had been there for 60 days, they never bothered to deepen the trench. So on the third day, they decided to spend the entire day digging the trench deeper. And while digging the trench, Corporal Lena...
What do they find? Was
the first to uncover something strange. He struck a metal object with his shovel, and he pulls out this kind of, like, engineering rod of some type. It was like a piston or, like, something that would, like, maybe be in a piece of heavy machinery or, like, a tank or something. And he looks at it, and it's got Russian lettering on it. So, to them, that probably doesn't seem too weird because the Soviets invaded Afghanistan in the 80s. And it probably wouldn't be too weird for them to leave equipment behind. But then they continued to dig. And as they dug, they uncovered some stranger artifacts. So the first of which is they kind of found like this small hollow chamber beneath the earth where there was a bunch of broken pottery. And then Lance Corporal Smith unearthed a large bone of some kind which appeared to be a human femur. So... this Smith guy was something...
Put it back.
Yeah.
Put it back.
So this Smith guy was something of a class clown of the group, and he didn't take the matter too seriously. But everybody else was a little superstitious, so they decided to take the advice of the British troops and put the bone back and continue digging around it. But it felt like they couldn't dig more than a few inches before they unearthed some other kind of human remain. Skull fragments, bone shards, broken pottery, broken gear... and it became pretty obvious why the British did not expand the trench. Basically, wherever they dug, they were digging up bodies. And it became pretty apparent that, all right, we are stationed at a pretty creepy place, but to them, the real dangers of the attacks of the Taliban is, like, far outweighed any buried skeletons or old war gear from 40 years ago. So...
right.
The next 2 weeks that they're there kind of passes by without incident. Nothing crazy happens. But then on night 13, Lance Corporal Hoyt is on guard duty in the observation tower. And he's sitting there, and he gets this uncomfortable feeling that, like, someone is standing behind him. So he turns to look behind him, looking back towards the camp, when out of nowhere, this loud, ear-piercing, blood-curdling scream breaks out from somewhere. And, he immediately thinks, oh, it's a Taliban infiltrator who got caught in the barbed wire barricades around the OP. So he grabs his night vision goggles and he starts scanning the surroundings. But the thing is, Hoyt wasn't the only one to hear the screams. Betty the dog starts barking, right? And the Marines... they wake up because they heard the scream, they hear the dog barking, right? Now Hoyt is scanning the fields. When he detects movement on his night vision, he sees this humanoid figure that runs between one bush to another. And Corporal Lena takes his rifle and he raises it at the position that Hoyt is focused on and the dog Betty is fixated upon. And his rifle has a thermal imager that can detect heat signatures. But he doesn't see any heat signatures coming from that position. So, like, you would be able to see the heat of a person coming through the bush, right?
In a bush.
Right?
Yeah.
But Hoyt is insistent that he's there. He can't have gone anywhere else. He's got to be behind that bush. So
right, but he has night vision goggles, not
he doesn't have thermal. He has night vision.
Right.
Now, for the entire rest of the night, right, the camp's on guard because they're like, we're going to be under attack. That's a scout. He's looking to see, if the camp is active. And, we got him pinned down, but people are probably going to come back, back him up. But nothing ever comes of it. Daylight comes, and the guy never moves from the bush. He just completely disappeared. So they were like, we can't really explain that, but, like, maybe it's our eyes were playing tricks on us or something. Maybe we're just feeling, a little combat fatigue or something. Maybe, maybe it was somebody, but maybe, they got away and we just didn't see them or whatever. So day 26 rolls around. Lance Corporal Zolik, he's on guard duty in the guard tower. And it's a brutally hot night that night. So uncomfortable, in fact, that he remembers he removed his helmet because he was sweating so much. And then Sergeant Green approached him from behind. He did his signature double tap on the shoulder, and he reprimanded him and told him to put his helmet back on, right? And so, he's dripping sweat. He's fatigued from the heat, but, he's going to do his job, and he has to wear the helmet for a very valid reason, right? So he does it. So later in the night, he's observing the fields on watch duty. It's this brutally warm night, but all of a sudden the temperature in the room just kind of drops dramatically. Such a significant amount over a short period of time that it seemed completely bizarre, as if there was like a cold front or like a storm rolling in, but the skies were clear. There was no sign of any of that. It was so cold that he actually went from profusely sweating to shivering. But there was no breeze. There's no air conditioner of any kind going.
Sounds like a ghost to me,
yeah.
Mitch. Sounds like a freaking ghost to me.
He keeps getting this weird feeling that someone is standing behind him, but there's no one there. And then he starts hearing whispering behind him. He can't make it out what exactly they're saying, but he distinctly remembers it did not sound like English. And then he starts to hear the trembling of footsteps, not behind him, but above him on the roof of the tower. So his first thought is, oh, this is Lance Corporal Smith, who's like the practical joker of the group, trying to play a prank on me. So, he quickly gets up, rushes outside to try and catch Smith red-handed on the roof of the tower, only to find out that he's not on the roof at all. He's right there asleep with the 7 other Marines, with all 7 Marines. Yeah. So now he's wondering if it's possible he heard an infiltrator of some kind. So he goes back to the observation post. He raises his thermal scope to survey the area, and he picks up a heat signature this time, right? And this is kind of interesting to me because before the thermal couldn't pick up anything. But now the thermal's picking up something. And it picks up a heat signature of a man standing out in the field some great distance away. And he's kind of standing with like his fists raised and clenched like this, like he's looking for a fight. And Zolik feels like this guy's looking right at me, right? So he switches to his night vision to get a better view. He's switching back and forth between a thermal scope and then a night vision, back and forth, back and forth. So he switches to his night vision to get a better view, and then the guy's gone. It vanishes completely. And then he's like, oh crap, where'd he go? So he grabs the thermal again, and he's shocked to see that the figure, in a matter of a few seconds, seemed to have moved 100 meters or so closer, like it teleported. So then he switches back to the night vision, sees nothing, goes back to the thermal, there it is, goes back to night vision, loses it again, goes back to thermal. This time, it's not there. And then he feels someone tap him twice on the shoulder. And he turns around and he expects to see Sergeant Green, maybe, who was like woke up from all the motion and commotion of switching back and forth so rapidly between his gear. And then that's when he sees there's no one behind me. And that at that point, he had already been experiencing like what they call combat fatigue and, high levels of stress. And, he was already kind of depressed.
Dehydrated.
He's at this
overworked
place that sucks. There's no amenities, right? It's real rough out there. So he started to convince himself now that I'm losing my mind. I'm going crazy. I'm hearing voices. I'm seeing things. I'm feeling people touch me that aren't there. So he gets harassed all night long by seeing things, hearing voices, being touched, right? Feeling breathing on his skin. And the next day he goes to Sergeant Green and Corporal Lena, the 2 guys in charge. He explains that he thought he was going nuts and he requests a transfer. And his commanding officers agreed, but Lena and the other Marines were kind of disappointed to, number one, be down a guy, because now that sucks because everybody else has to do more work. But they also gave him a hard time because they were like, oh, you're just pulling the crazy card. You know, you're just trying to get out of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? But the next several days, their tune kind of changes a little bit because each member, while on watch, starts to experience almost identical situations to what Zalek experienced. You know, feelings of being watched, disappearing figures on thermal and night vision, you know, strange radio sounds, all this sort of stuff. And, you know, while Practical Joker Lance Corporal Smith stays kind of skeptical, the rest come to the unfortunate agreement that, well, the OP was haunted. And they had no choice but to deal with it while they waited out the remainder of their 60-week stay. So, you know, some other interesting things that happened was, you know, Corporal Lena is on watch duty, and he has a very similar experience to that whole thermal imager, night vision, back and forth thing, except in his case, right, it was the night vision was picking things up, while the thermal imager was not, you know, and...
just depends on what the ghosts decide.
Yeah, or something like that, right? Or maybe...
cold.
You know,
They're not high on opium.
Maybe.
They're all freaking high on opium, or they're drinking opium water or something.
Yeah, I mean,
they're Marines. They love to party. They're freaking, you know.
Oh, for sure. Well, here's where it gets sort of crazy. So, it's the final day of their stay, and all of their radio
Day
equipment.
60. This is such. I'm sorry. This is such a movie. You know, like this is
sure.
Paranormal Activity 7. And they fully jumped the shark, and it's not like all of a sudden it's taking place on like a military base. So it's also sort of like a political thriller.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because like we weren't even supposed to be in Afghanistan in the first place, man. You know, like, that was just like a whole government thing that they were just like trying to infiltrate the Middle East after the failed Desert Storm. But you know what I mean? Like, okay, so day 60. We cut to
day 59, right? Because on day 60 they're going to
day 60 is when they leave.
Day 60 is when they leave, and the next group shows up. So it's day 59.
Gotcha.
Right?
Day 59. Dude, it's right on the screen. Day 59.
Yeah. All of the I'll if I remember to do that, I will.
No, I mean in the movie.
Oh, okay. Well, see, now I feel like I forced myself to put it into the edit.
Well, now if you don't, then everyone will just know that you decided not to put in that effort. But it doesn't bother me whatsoever.
Yeah.
I don't care.
All right.
It's a free podcast.
So, Day 59, all of their radio equipment just inexplicably fails. So, Lance Corporal Dibbs, who is the guy in charge of communication, he's at a complete loss as to why this happened, because he's been working on things, you know, the whole time. So a little fun fact is a lot of the radio communication stuff in the military is from like the 1950s era. They've never really updated it.
Yeah, and the Marines always get the hand-me-downs of the hand-me-downs, from what I've heard.
Yes.
You know, like they get the stuff that like has been thrown out and refurbished, like, but it's still like, you know, anywhere from 30 to 50 years old.
Yes, exactly, right? But the thing is, that's why you have specially trained people as part of your squad who are specially trained to know how these things work, how to fix them, you know, what could be going wrong, right? So also...
because shit breaks all the time, right? It breaks all the time.
Right? And it's not uncommon for it to break, right? But what is incredibly uncommon is for every single thing to break on the same day within minutes of each other.
Right, that's quite the coincidence.
Right? So, you know, Lance Corporal Dibbs is utterly confused by this. Nothing has changed. Everything appears to be working when he looks inside of it, right? So they're now completely isolated. They have a satellite phone, but it's very unreliable, especially out there. You know what I mean? So they have no way to contact HQ. They just have to hope that, you know, they can make it through the last day and get relieved tomorrow, right? Because for all they know, maybe the Taliban had some kind of communications jammer or something and just jammed their signal to prepare for an attack or something, right? You don't know. So nighttime rolls around, and Lance Corporal Wilson is the one who's in the guard post. And that's when the all too common and familiar whispering in the ear starts to happen to him, right? And now they've gotten kind of used to this by now, but it doesn't change the fact that it's really fucking creepy, right? And the whispering, to them, they finally have decided between all of them that it definitely sounds like Russian. So he's hearing this Russian whispering in his ear, and then almost before he can even register like what he's hearing, rapid machine gun fire erupts all around him, right? And for Wilson, it sounds like it's literally right next to him. Like if someone was holding a gun next to his head with like the chamber right next to his head, like right next to his ear, just firing away on like a machine gun, right? And machine gun fire erupts all around the camp. All the Marines wake up, they scramble. The camp is under attack. That's what they awaken believing, right? So they scramble to find any cover that they can. Corporal Lena crawls into the observation tower. He finds Wilson. Wilson is like completely being overcome by this machine gun fire, which to him is like so loud that he's like almost in like a fetal position on the ground. You know, and they're like, where are we getting fired upon from? Who's firing upon us? You know, they're trying to pinpoint who's firing upon them, from where it's coming from. You know, they try to look around. They can't see anything, right? And that's when they hear the very distinct whistling sound of a rocket-propelled grenade being fired at their position.
Oh my God.
Right? So they brace for impact, and they hear the explosion of the RPG against the observation tower walls. And now a firefight has broken out, right? The Marines outside are returning fire at any position they can possibly perceive as being under threat. Anywhere they think they're getting fired upon from, they're returning fire. They're basically blind fire.
But are they seeing damage? Are they seeing anything?
They are not, right? And we'll get to that, right? So Lance Corporals Hoyt and Smith manage to crawl their way into the trench, and they stay low enough so they aren't exposed, and they start sweeping the trench to make sure the trench has been taken by the enemy. But they find no one there. And after what seems like an eternity, you know, the firing of all those automatic weapons stops. And now, just because the firing stops doesn't mean that the threat is gone, right? So for the next several hours, they're hunkered down in cover, just waiting, right, to see if the firing returns. Everybody is accounted for. You know, they're just assuming the enemy attack is not done. But the firing never comes back and never continues. So the morning comes, and they decide, all right, we're in the clear. Let's go investigate the observation post and see what we can find. Maybe, see if we can find signs of the enemy, see if we can signs of damage. There's no signs. There's no signs of being struck with an RPG. There's no signs of things being riddled with machine gun fire. You know, there's no signs of any enemy encroachment of any kind. The only spent casings of the ammunition was their own. It was like there was not even an attack. And now Smith, who was the most skeptical of all these paranormal experiences at OP Rock, was the most shaken up about this out of everyone. They basically just got attacked by some unknown assailant, but have no explanation for it. There's no signs of damage. There's nothing like that. So this is the day that they're finally going to get relieved. So a new troop comes in, and they pretty much pull the same thing the British Marines did. And they kind of understand exactly why they did it. They just wanted to get the hell out of there. So, they didn't really do a turnover. They just kind of packed up quick. They said they were ready to leave within like an hour, right? That's how quick they packed everything up. And after they left, they came to know the true history of the OP. So when the Russians invaded in the 1980s, and they invaded Afghanistan, the outpost was controlled by the Mujahideen. So the Russians...
Is that from Dune?
No.
Sounds like it's from Dune.
No, the Mujahideen was the...
Did you say Muad'Dib?
No.
Did you see the Kwisatz Haderach?
Well, Dune does have a lot of Arabian Islamic influence. So that doesn't surprise me one bit, right? But for those who don't know, the Mujahideen was basically like the terrorist organization in control of Afghanistan in the 80s, before the Soviets invaded. So the Soviets invade, they take over this outpost, they kill all the Mujahideen that are occupying it, they take it over. Then the Taliban roll in, and they took it from the Russians. And the Taliban, after they captured it, the surviving Russians, they ritualistically beheaded all of them. And then the U.S. rolled in when we invaded Afghanistan, and they mounted an offensive against the OP, and they found that the Taliban had constructed a series of tunnels beneath the OP. So the U.S. forces bombed the tunnels, collapsing them and burying the Taliban alive. So that explains the massive amounts of remains that they found beneath the earth, right? It was basically like the OP was one giant tomb, Yeah. Now, of the squad members, Lance Corporal Smith would die in a very tragic accident on a secure base where a stray bullet struck him, not long after they left. Parker and Dibbs would also both be killed in action. Parker during a defensive patrol, and Dibbs by an IED. And then Sergeant Green would also suffer catastrophic injuries at the hands of an IED, but he survived. So, Corporal Lena and Lance Corporals Wilson, Zolak, and Hoyt would go on to tell their story about their time at OP Rock to the New York Times, which is where this story was first printed. The New York Times ran an article about this. And they aren't the only ones to have reported strange happenings at this place. The Times article includes, testimony from some other Marines that were stationed at this place with very similar stories about radio equipment malfunctioning and hearing voices and seeing strange things, strange glowing lights being seen, all sorts of stuff like that. And Corporal Lena personally believes that when they dug up the pottery and the remains on their third day in the trenches, that they might have unleashed something, maybe a curse that has followed their
Why
unit.
does the Taliban have Why would the Taliban have pottery down there?
So, I'm glad you asked that question, right? Because
that seemed I thought it was going to be more ancient than that.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. So, there is a nearby town to the OP, which to them, OP Rock has sort of a religious connotation to it, because one of Muhammad's generals, Muhammad being the founder of Islam, right, the Prophet Muhammad.
The Prophet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of his generals, right, took the rock from pagans a very long time ago, and it became like a holy site, basically, right?
Gotcha.
So the people there, before it was a military outpost, they also used that place for religious ceremonies.
Oh, okay.
As a grave site, right? They would do burials there, all sorts of stuff like that. And it should also be noted, a little bit about Arabian and Islamic folklore and religion has a lot of paranormal entities, right? But probably the most famous of which are known as jinnies or genies, right? And now we probably think of them as, like the genie from Aladdin.
If you hear the word genie as an American,
that's what you think of, right?
Aladdin.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. You think of the friendly blue guy. He's gonna grant you wishes, right? The thing is,
they're normally mischievous, though.
They are
normally a jinn or a genie are normally very mischievous, very much monkey's paw type.
Oh yes, absolutely, right. And some of them, right? There's multiple different types too. There are some that are called like ifrits,
Oh, yeah.
Right? Euphrates or whatever, right? Some of them can be quite malevolent and downright evil, right?
Yeah.
They're basically...
evil genies.
Right?
Yeah.
And in Islamic religion, right? So there's Arabian religion, which is like pre-Islamic, where genies are kind of like trickster spirits, but in Islamic tradition, genies are basically like what Christians would probably think of as demons, right? So,
Gotcha. Like little devils.
Yes. And there's a lot of tales in these folklores and religions concerning genies where, you know, they get trapped in containers. Now, the most common is an oil lamp, right?
Pottery.
That's the stereotypical
Pottery,
one.
though.
But jars and pottery and bottles and things like that, right? So...
So it was a genie messing about.
It could be,
I buy that. I like that more. I like that more than Ghost.
Right? Well, you know, could it have been a demonic entity like that instead of a ghost, right? Because there are some people who don't subscribe to the idea of ghosts in the literal sense of the spirits of the dead still linger around, but they do subscribe to evil spirits for a religious purpose that might be impersonating them or something like that, right? You know, but also let's talk about maybe a more rational explanation, which I guess you could talk to.
The opium.
Yeah, so, as we noted, poppy fields surrounded this place, right? And now poppy can cause hallucinogenic effects, right? And you can be exposed to it through a number of different ways, you know? There's airborne pollen, right? You know, you could unknowingly ingest it, right? It could be possible that some of it got into maybe their water supply or something, right? You don't know. So, shared hallucinations are not impossible, even between 2 or 3 people, right? Usually they differ in what they're actually hallucinating, but for multiple people to hallucinate at the same time is not an unknown phenomenon. Now, what would be...
What do you mean? You mean like taking drugs at the same time and seeing the same shit? Or do you mean like hallucination in another...
So
like,
think of it this way. Let's use the classic example of you're out in the desert, you're running low on water, you're so thirsty, you see the oasis in the distance, right?
A mirage,
but you're with 3 other people, and 2 other people see the same thing, right? But the oasis is going to look different to each person, right? But you still all hallucinate the same thing. It's not impossible.
Sure.
Right? And now
I understand. Yeah, right. You're going through similar things.
Right?
Yeah.
And now in the military, there's also what's known as combat fatigue, which is a real thing, right? Which is when you're under so much stress, just so constantly, just under stress of, you know, the threat to your life, to everything beating down on you, especially when you're in a real brutal place, right? They can make you experience symptoms that, you know, the same kind of stuff that Zolek thought he was losing his mind. You can start hearing voices. You can start feeling people touching you. You can start seeing things.
It's a hard job.
Yeah,
it's a very hard thing to do.
Right? And it's a real thing that you can hallucinate doing that, right? So, I guess it's what do you want to believe? Do you want to believe that these Marines experienced some crazy paranormal activity by either ghosts or a demonic entity or some other type of thing like that? Or do you want to believe that maybe they were exposed to some type of hallucinatory thing from the poppy, or maybe they were suffering from combat fatigue and started to sort of lose it a little bit? Or do you think maybe it was a combination of both of those things? Or maybe it was a combination of paranormal stuff being heightened by that too, right? Because you can't exclude that as well. If you're willing to accept that maybe there was a paranormal aspect to this, right? But you're also willing to accept that maybe there was, you know, some type of chemical aspect to this, it's not impossible for them both to play off each other, right? And especially if you're dealing with, let's just say, a demonic thing, like a genie, right? Who might, you know, be more intelligent, more savvy, really knows how to play with your mind, right? Maybe that
The
could
idea,
also be playing off each other.
The playing with your mind. Heat vision.
Yeah.
Night vision.
Yeah.
Heat vision.
Exactly.
Night vision.
Well,
these motherfuckers,
exactly.
they were dehydrated and high. That's what I think. Or maybe a combination of the both.
Right? Well,
I mean, obviously that just seems more grounded in reality.
Yes. You know? Right? But the interesting thing to me about it is if it was just these 8 guys, I would agree with you. But since this story has been told, more people have come out of the woodwork who are vetted, verified Marines, both American and British, who have been stationed there. Like I told you, some of them were interviewed in that New York Times article too, who have all reported, these same things, right? And you can read accounts of these people on things like their personal blogs, social media posts, websites like Reddit, right? You can find interviews of them on YouTube, right? So, I don't know, man. Maybe OP Rock really is the real deal. A ghostly tomb that's cursed to relive its final 60 days for the rest of eternity, right? Where maybe it is.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. There's just like so much there, you know, like you can even just like look into like, not to psychoanalyze anyone that like signs up for the military, right? But like it takes a certain
it definitely takes a certain to volunteer, it takes a certain type of person, yeah.
You know what I mean? And like whether or not that plays into like the same type of like, you know, and it is like very stressful. It's like putting yourself, I think just even signing up for the National Guard, you know what I mean, is like way more noble of what I do for a living, you know.
Oh, for sure.
But to be like on the front lines, like as a Marine, like out in the shit, living in, you know, rugged terrain, like it's very hard. So who knows what that does to you mentally, right? And like you said, it could be a mixture. Maybe their water supply has a little bit too much poppy seed in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that plus exhaustion or that plus dehydration or, you know, I like the story. I also like how what I was calling a paranormal activity kind of turned to a Final Destination because people were starting to die left and right at the end.
Yeah.
Again, they're like, you can't escape. We're still gonna get you.
Yeah.
But I also think
that's
sort of
there's like some sort of curse or something, right?
But that also comes with the territory, right? That comes with the territory. If you're walking around IEDs all the time, you're gonna get fucking blown up. You know what I mean?
See, that's the logical way to look at it too, right? Is
yeah.
Like, I hate to use the phrase, but this is what you signed up for. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it can happen. You understood that risk. It's a risk you took.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's super risky. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, really interesting. I like how it was sort of contemporary. I like the fact that it was like, you know, 2009 and it's like still happening and, you know, it seems fun. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I hope it's a genie. Haunting a bunch of pottery. I do like the fact that, but they put the stuff back and it didn't like go away.
Yeah, it didn't go away.
They should just keep digging then. They should have just kept freaking digging.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the moral of the story. They should have just dug the trench deeper anyway.
They should have just dug the trench, yeah. At least they would have known it wasn't coming from the trench.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to take a little break, and we're going to come back with some, you know, exactly maybe what they would be eating out at OP Rock. Welcome back. We are here. We're talking about some, you know, paranormal activity. That just is what it is, you know? Not the movie. I'm not talking about the movie anymore. In the military. And now we are going to be talking about M.R.E.s, which I don't know if you know, Mitch. Do you know what M.R.E. stands for?
Meal ready to eat.
That's right. Meal ready to eat. They're individual self-contained meal kits that are designed to provide food and sustenance to military personnel and other individuals in situations where regular food activities may not be available, such as during combat, field training, emergency response operations. So Mitch said he's going to tell us a little military tale, and we came up with the idea of eating M.R.E.s. We both have the same flavor M.R.E. chicken burrito bowl. We're going to taste those in just a bit. Now, Mitch, before I get into some of the details, you just said before I get into some of the more broad details of MREs, and then I want to talk about exactly what we're reading. But what did you just say about this MRE?
I'm really banking on this thing being filling, because I'm hoping this is going to be my dinner before I go to bed.
Okay. Now, I hope it's filling for you too. I'm going to actually skip ahead, and I'm going to talk about the specific one that we have here. So these are from the Army-Navy store. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, these are very similar to what you would get in these situations.
Yeah.
But there's only 220 calories in this, Mitch. So I don't know how filling that is going to be. Only 220 calories.
Wow, that's really low. This is like
Now, generally... Go ahead.
I was going to say, this is like... You ever look at, like, a package of, like, imitation crab meat and see that, like, that whole bag is, like, 120 calories or something?
Yeah. Yeah,
that's crazy. Nothing. That's so little.
Yeah. Yeah, so typically an entire MRE would contain a main course and side dishes and snacks and desserts, beverages, condiments, right? If you were in a military situation, there would be a lot of these, you know? And, you know, depending on the situation, this might just be what you're having, but like 220 calories isn't going to be enough for a meal. So there's, you know, a bunch of different options to have different things. We have a main course here. These are one of the main courses according to... you know, the website and according to like what the military would deem a main course.
Oh,
now
okay.
they are packaged, right? This is a really simple packaging, durable, lightweight pouches.
Yeah.
They can withstand rough handling. I'm sure I could throw this across the room. Extreme temperatures. You know, they're designed to be shelf stable for long periods of time, 3 to 5 years actually.
Oh wow!
So they can be stored in various environments. They are designed to provide like a balanced mix of nutrients. We have 34 grams of carbs, 15 grams of protein, and 3 grams of fat. So that's going to fill you up pretty good. Carbs are going to give you that energy that you want. It's kind of high in carbs, but I myself, I'm a carb-heavy guy. We talked about me riding my bike. That's why I was excited about this, because maybe I'm going to start bringing these on my bike rides. Wow, look at this.
Oh, wow.
220. Actually, no, I'm not doing that. These are going to be out of control. I guess it'll depend. We'll see how they are. Like, they weren't that expensive. Do you remember what I told you? I
remember you said they were like $5 or something.
Yeah, I think they were $4 and change. So that's not that bad. You know, they're not typically intended for everyday consumption.
Yeah.
They are high in sodium. There are a lot of preservatives in this, right?
Yeah,
they are formulated to provide sufficient calories, but like, you really don't want to be eating them every day. It's not like this is going to like replace your meal, but I've never tried anything like this. Have you ever tried anything like this before?
I've never had anything like this either. I've always kind of wanted to try one, which is why I think we really hit it off when we both like decided that this was what we were going to do. So, you know, like I've heard people say that these things can be really good, or also these things can be absolutely disgusting. So
okay. Well, you're making me more excited.
Yeah, I'm really interested to find out which one we got. I feel like we went for a flavor we felt was going to be pretty safe. Because I remember I looked at some of the options, right? And like one of them was like spaghetti and meatballs. And I was like, no way. We're not doing that one.
Yeah, so I wonder, I mean, these have been around. They've been around for decades, right? We do have chicken burrito bowl here. We're going to try that in just a second. But they've been around for a while. The concept of like prepackaged shelf-stable meals for military use dates back to World War II. They used to be called different things, C rations, K rations. They were often canned or packaged in like little tiny boxes and provided basic sustenance. So think about like what you used to get on like a plane, but for the military. You know what I mean? With like little different like sections, you know? These packages, we're gonna eat them at room temperature, but these are designed to be just like thrown in hot water and be heated up that way.
Oh wow.
You can't put them in the microwave, but the idea is boil up some water, right? So if you're in like a camping situation, you can just boil some water and put these in there and heat them up. You can eat them room temperature, and there are also some that come with like a little thing inside that you like break and it will heat up the food.
Oh,
that was
okay,
something that
interesting.
I learned about. Yeah, like an instant thermal sort of, almost like one of those hand packet things that you might use to warm your hands, but like that, yeah. So the modern MRE that we know, right? We know they go back to World War II, but the modern one was developed in the 70s. It became a standard individual ration for the United States military in the 80s. And since then, they've just been basically refined, different menu variety, packaging technology, nutritional content, all that stuff. A lot of people use them for if they're going out camping and stuff, right? It's not just military anymore. I think people take them on camping trips. People take them if they're going to go on like long 100-mile runs and stuff, and they just want to like pack stuff.
Yeah. Because it's lightweight, it's easy to carry. You can probably take a lot of them if you're going to be going for a while, right? So
yeah, they are kind of heavy, which I don't really love. But they are, they're sealed in this military grade packaging, and it looks like, Mitch, we're going to be able to just tear the top here. So you want to try it? You want to go for it? You want to see? I think we tear the top the long way. Honestly, it kind of is like I don't own a cat, but it's kind of like a wet cat food type of thing.
Oh, this is not what I was expecting.
Oh my god.
Oh jeez.
Why I'll be surprised if I want to eat more than a bite of this.
This looks absolutely gross. What did we do? This is one of the least appetizing things I've ever seen in my life. Oh my god.
Okay, so we got chicken burrito bowl, right? It's chicken with brown rice, beans, and vegetables.
Yeah.
There are so many different things. Chicken. Okay, I have a spoon here.
Oh, I didn't come prepared.
There's beans and rice and mush. And I'm just gonna. What are you just gonna bite it like that? What did you think it was?
I think so.
All right, go for it. Oh my god, how salty is it? It smells just like a burrito.
You know what it just tastes like?
It tastes way better than it looks.
Yeah, honestly,
it tastes like an Amy's burrito to me.
It tastes just like bean paste to me. Like,
yeah,
that's just it, right?
I mean, there's like real corn in there.
No, there's like, I took another bite. I'm surprised that I took another bite with the way it looks, but I took another bite. This time I could actually like taste the texture. Taste some different things and feel the texture of some different things.
Yeah, I mean, presentation is obviously the thing that's the worst here, but I have now had 4 bites.
Yeah.
And I am going to put it down because it's definitely loaded with sodium.
Oh, yeah, it's wicked salty.
And it's not really that great to eat while talking on a podcast. But I will say, looks can be deceiving. It has an absolute 0 for presentation, but otherwise it was, it really made me think that it was going to be maybe one of the worst things I've ever tasted. And it has decent flavor. I mean, it's not that spicy, but it's clear that there are like real things in there.
Yeah.
Like
no, it's not
chilies
fake,
and
right. It's not like like artificial, fake beans, fake corn type shit. With a bunch of stuff like that.
It's not like plant-based protein or something. Nothing against that type of, not against plant-based protein, but it is like there's chicken, there's water, there's
it's
all
like
these
someone
ingredients, salt.
It's like someone turned a burrito into paste and put that in a bag.
Like, yes, it is very strange. And
I feel like this would be good heated up. Actually, I kind of regret that we chose not to heat it up. I feel like this would be way better heated.
Yeah, it probably would be better heated. I agree. Yeah. Who knows how long these have been sitting on a shelf for? You're gonna heat. How about you're gonna heat up the rest of it and then you can follow up on the next episode?
Oh no, I don't think I'm gonna do that. Honestly, no.
Will this be your dinner? Will this be your dinner?
No,
now?
I think I might have to go find something else.
All right.
I don't think I'm gonna eat any more of this.
No.
I'm one of those people where, like, to me, presentation when it comes to food is super important.
Is big.
Yeah. Right? Because, like, if something tastes good, but it looks absolutely disgusting, I won't eat it.
Now, I really don't blame you. I have one proposition for you before we get into ranking, and we'll get you to a proper dinner.
Sure.
I did bring hot sauce.
Oh, okay.
to see if I could plus this up.
Oh,
so
all right.
I might, for science sake,
all right.
take a
I
little
like
bit of this
science.
crystal
I'm a
hot
big
sauce.
You might not think it since I'm a guy who believes in paranormal stuff, but I actually quite like science.
Right. So this is crystal hot sauce. Have you ever heard of it?
I've never heard of crystal hot sauce, no. Ooh,
great.
Louisiana hot sauce.
Louisiana, it's kind of like Tabasco, but if I'm going to be snotty about it, better.
Oh, okay.
And it's, kind of vinegary, but I put a little bit in there. And for science sake, I poured a little bit in the pouch. And I mean, I'm a big hot sauce guy. I mean, it's exactly
what you expected.
Yeah, it just is like a very middle of the road, grinded up burrito with what I think is good hot sauce on it. So okay, classic.
So I guess before we get to the ratings, I have some more questions I want to spitball. I just wonder, do all M.R.E.s look like this? I always pictured them looking different.
I bet most of them, especially the ones in these pouches, are I bet the spaghetti and meatballs looks like basically slightly fancier SpaghettiOs. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Because I always pictured it as something that looks like this, but you open it up and there's a bunch of little packages of things.
So what did you think we were gonna get in here? Did you think it was gonna be a burrito?
No, I thought there was gonna be a piece, some pieces of maybe some slices of cheese and some preserved almost like a
you thought it was going to be a lunchable
chicken thing, yeah, or
you thought it was going to be a lunchable,
yeah, or maybe like a protein bar type bean thing that's made from bean
so that's
paste
kind
or
of
something.
what I think that's what C rations and K rations were like. When I looked those up online, that's what I saw were boxes that were split a little bit more with dividers and stuff.
Yeah.
This is not that. That takes too long. We don't have time to combine the meals.
Oh.
We literally have. You need to. This needs to be in hot water. You're gonna take it out of the hot water. You're gonna open it up. You're gonna eat it really fast, and you're gonna go back out and look at the horizon for hours at a time. You know what I mean? Making sure that the enemy isn't coming. I mean, it's a brutal.
Oh, for sure.
Think about how brutal that is.
For sure.
You know?
No, I can understand that for sure. Right. I don't know why I had that other picture in my head, but that's what I was picturing.
If you had the dessert ones and you had the other ones, maybe it would be a little bit more well-rounded, but because, you're not just going to have 3 of these a day. That's only 660 calories.
Oh,
that's,
for sure.
Not nearly enough, especially for a soldier out in the field. So,
yeah.
But yeah, most of the meals, according to my research, are between 150 and 250 calories, per serving. So that's pretty standard. I mean, maybe they're just eating more often. I don't know, but yeah. Let's go to our ranking system here. I never want these again. I never want to.
Yeah.
I have no need to ever want this again. I don't think I do either. I'm definitely not going to Fort Worth or wherever. I'm not going to West Point where they, that's the motherland of these. I'm certainly not going to pay the import tax. I never want these again. I'm skipping the trip.
Yeah. No, I'm with you as far as that goes for sure. I would say that it's not worth the travel. Now, in a life or death situation where this was the only option, I'd eat it. I'm not gonna like it, but I'd eat it.
No,
right?
Yeah, I'd eat it.
Yeah. But as far as trying different meal versions of these, especially if they all look like this, look at that, ew, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it looks like cat food.
Yeah. Dude, I have a can of tuna in my cupboard. I should have just gotten that. At least that would have probably tasted a little better. But the other thing I was gonna say was I am curious about the dessert ones now, though. I feel like those...
All right, maybe a follow-up for the dessert ones. I feel like that might be better.
I feel like that has the potential to be quite good, especially because...
Agreed.
You know, especially if it's like a cream-based thing or something. Like, you're expecting it to kind of be a little more, for lack of a better term, sludgy. You know what I mean? Like, if it's like a Boston cream thing...
so bad. Yours looks so bad. I know it's exactly the same thing of what I have, but it is...
Yeah.
It's disgusting. Oh, stop. Okay, I hate this. Let's give it a tier. What tier are you putting this on?
All right, so this is where my travel tier and my, ranking tier, my letter tier is going to defer, actually. So normally I would rank it pretty, like, if I rank it low on one thing, it gets ranked low on both, but, like, judging this basically just by the way it tastes, right? I would rank this like a C tier thing. Like, as far as, like I said, like, I'd eat this if I had to. You know what I mean? If this was what was available to eat, I would eat it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it tastes as advertised, right? It tastes like a burrito. Kind of. I mean, it's missing the tortilla, but, you know, maybe just include those as part of your kit when you're traveling out or something.
I think there's tortilla torn up. I think there's torn up tortilla.
Oh, is there?
Maybe not. Diced tomatoes, tomato juice, no. Green chilies, no. No, there isn't. It's just a burrito bowl. Well, yeah, I'm going D tier. I hate it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's good.
Yeah, you know, I reserve D tier for the stuff that I would never eat again. Like if I was in a life or death situation and...
I'm never going to eat this again.
Yeah. Well, no, but, like, even in, like, impossible scenarios, right? Like, the Haribo... Remember the Haribo dinosaur gummies? Like, if I was out in the field in Afghanistan and we were starving, my regiment was starving, and they're like, all right, guys, all we have left is these Haribo dinosaur gummies. Well, looks like I'm going to die of starvation because I ain't eating those. Okay. Those were so bad. But... like this.
Yeah, I guess C tier seems better. Yeah, C tier does seem a little bit better. It tastes like one of those Amy's frozen burritos, which I said earlier.
Yeah.
I feel like, it tastes like one of those 99-cent frozen burritos, the insides of them, which is probably very similar to what this is. But, yeah, I'm definitely not going to be rushing to have them again. But maybe... we have an idea, we could talk about plenty of things and have a strawberry shortcake M.R.E. or something.
Yeah, like, see, I feel like something like, or like a Boston cream, or even like a cookies and cream type thing. Or like, I feel like something like that could be like great. You know what I mean?
Right. This is just whack. Yeah.
Yeah, or like a cannoli one.
Oh, okay. Cannoli.
Yeah, that could be good.
Yeah, but the crust is going to be so soggy.
Yeah, well, yeah. Now I'm rethinking that.
You just want those cannoli dippers that we had at work.
Yeah, that's what popped into my head.
You want those those were good.
They were good.
Those are good.
They don't order enough of them. I doubt anybody in that cafeteria listens to this, but if you do, you should order more of those. They're quite the hit.
Yeah, you're right. They should order more of those. All right, well, thanks, Mitch. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for sharing that story. Thanks for trying this weird food with me. I mean, I do think M.R.E.s are interesting,
Oh, for sure. I'm glad I got to finally try one. It's,
same.
It's like a scratch off the bucket list type thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
right, exactly. So 2 things off the bucket list: eating an M.R.E. and another episode of Cryptid Nuggets.
Yeah. We're going strong, man.
Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. What was it?
Oh, I said we're going strong. We're doing 2 things off the bucket list today. Normally, it's only one. Yeah. Getting another episode out.
Normally 1 thing a day, exactly, which is just going to bed. But please, Mitch, have a healthier dinner. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, sounds like a plan, man. See ya.
Decaf left, regular right. Decaf left, regular right. It's very challenging work.